Good afternoon. The Blue Jays have made Vladimir Guerrero Jr. one of the richest players in baseball history.
The slugging first baseman has reportedly agreed to a 14-year extension worth $500 million. CTV Sean Leathong has been gathering reaction from fans to the deal and joins us live now with more. Sean.
Well, Nathan and Michelle, it's the largest contract in Blue Jays history, and Blue Jays fans couldn't be happier about the team getting their guy. After a couple of attempts in the past to get free agents that they weren't able to, the fear was that Vladimir Guerrero Jr., when this season ended, may walk away in free agency. Now, the next time he'll become a free agent is 2040. Like you said, a 14-year contract extension worth $500 million. The 26-year-old Guerrero has been a Blue Jay since he was a rookie, being signed way back when he was a teenager, coming up to the big club in 2019. In 2021, he got votes for a possible MVP season, and he had a real bounce-back season last year where he won another Silver Slugger Award, hitting over 30 home runs, batting over .320, and just putting himself back in that talk as one of the best players in baseball. This is now the third highest contract in baseball history, behind Shohei Ohtani and Juan Soto. The Blue Jays got their guy. They have something they can look forward to going into the future, and this morning fans were reacting. Here's what they had to say.
Wow, 14 years, $500 million.
Crazy amount for nowadays, especially with everything that's going on. But if you want to keep a superstar, all-star, you got to pay some big bucks.
I think the $500 million could be better used elsewhere, but I'm not a big Jays fan, and I don't run the team.
I think good talent should be rewarded. Now, that's a lot of money for sure.
I should have played harder when I was younger. That's what I think.
So Guerrero's making over $28 million this season. That will jump to an average of over $35 million next season. The contract being a total of $500 million. A fun fact is, when the building behind me was constructed from 1986 to 1989, the cost was $570 million. It gives you a sense of just how much the price has gone up in this world. Reporting live, I'm Sean Leathong. I'll send it back inside.
Yeah, that does it. Thank you, Sean. Still to come, global markets have tumbled in response to U.S. President Donald Trump's latest round of tariffs. We'll have more on the reaction a little later in the newscast.
Well, there are 3 weeks to go until Canadians head to the polls to choose their next prime minister. And recent polling shows the gap between the Liberals and Conservatives is narrowing. For a look at the polling, we're joined now by CTV's Scott Hurst. Scott, the latest CTV Globe and Mail and Nanos poll was released this morning. What are the numbers telling us now?
Good afternoon, Michelle. 3 weeks to go and lots of ground to cover. We're seeing the federal party leaders fan out across the country. Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre are both in British Columbia to start the day. Jagmeet Singh in Toronto and Yves-François Blanchet in Montreal. Specifically, what the latest Nanos tracking is showing, the 3-day rolling sample by Nanos, is that it is a race that is tightening at the top. The Liberals dropping a couple percentage points, the Conservatives picking up a couple percentage points. You see the Liberals there still on top, about 43% compared to about 38% for the Conservatives. When it comes to preferred prime minister, Mark Carney still leads in that realm as well. But when we break it down regionally, there are some things that stand out, specifically the Conservatives gaining some ground in vote-rich Ontario, the Liberals showing some vulnerability in Quebec, the Bloc Québécois picking up a few percentage points there. Here's more from Nick Nanos on the latest polling showing the race is getting tighter.
Take that out of the equation, and what would we see? A focus on jobs, the economy, the cost of living, where the future is going, all that kind of stuff. And what we see is a leveling of the playing field and a narrowing of the gap from a double-digit advantage last week, basically to a 5-point advantage.
So there's Nanos right there talking about the impact of the Trump factor. You take that out of the as a factor, and then it is a much tighter race compared to just dealing with the issue of the Trump administration.
Well, let's get more into that Trump factor, because I don't think you can take it out. It's been all Trump all the time on this campaign.
Michelle, you can't take it out, but last week we did see it play front and center. Of course, Wednesday was that big flashy announcement from the White House lawn about tariffs on a whole host of countries around the world. Of course, we're already still seeing the markets react to that, but that is when it was front and center, the middle of last week, and that is when the Liberals really picked up some ground. And according to the polling from Nanos, fundamentals, Canadians believe the Carney Liberals have an advantage when tension between Canada and the U.S. is high. Reduce that focus, and there's much more of a two-horse race here, and that is what we're seeing, a leveling out of the playing field, as other important issues that have really dogged the Liberals for several years now, which saw their polling numbers sinking for quite some time until the issue of dealing with the Trump administration really became front and center. Of course, jobs, cost of living, housing, taxes, crime, all important issues that'll still play quite important in the 3 weeks left to go.
Scott Hurst live for us in the CTV National Newsroom. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Markets around the world are plunging in reaction to U.S. President Donald Trump's recent tariff announcements.
The TSX taking a significant hit in early trading. CTV's Mike Walker has been following the markets closely. He joins us live with the latest. Mike.
Well, Michelle, Nathan, it's been a roller coaster ride on the markets after the opening bell this morning, but markets are plunging for the third straight day. Investors remain rattled by Trump's sweeping tariffs that continue to fuel uncertainty. Now, the plunge started overnight with markets sharply down in Asia and Europe. Wall Street and the Toronto Stock Exchange followed this morning. The TSX was down just over 1% in the first hour of trading. Now, this follows last week's two-day meltdown that saw North American markets plunge to levels not seen since the early days of the pandemic. Meanwhile, the U.S. president has doubled down on his sweeping global tariffs and yesterday expressed no interest in backing down despite the turmoil in the market. Investors we've been speaking with say they've been caught off guard by this, and concern continues to mount about a global recession.
There's a ton of uncertainty, and that's the problem, right? Is that the market hates uncertainty, so that's where we're at right now. We just don't know what's next. It could be a tweet that turns things around. You just don't know, right? It's pretty painful.
The market's telling us that people have been caught off guard with this such a steep decline. You know, we're talking 5% a day over the last 3 days. If you count today, if we see another 5% decline, you're talking 15, 16% decline. It's catching a lot of people off guard.
We see recessions in the rearview mirror, but we already got one data point on jobs last week that showed us it's already happening. When businesses are uncertain, you will see that the first thing they do is freeze hiring, and then the second thing they do is lay off.
Now, some experts are anticipating the Bank of Canada will make another cut to interest rates, and that next decision is expected on April 16th. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Mike. The Stellantis assembly plant in Windsor shutting down for 2 weeks starting today. The company announced the move last week, hours after the latest round of tariffs from U.S. President Donald Trump. The automaker is also pausing production at its Toluca assembly plant in Mexico for all of April, as well as temporarily laying off 900 workers at plants in Michigan and Indiana. Production in Windsor is currently set to resume on April 21st.
The Ford government says it is taking action to limit the fallout from U.S. tariffs on Ontarians.
This morning, the province announced roughly $11 billion in relief and support for workers and businesses. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris has been following this story and joins us live with more details. Siobhan.
Well, this is the first bit of new help since the end of the Ontario election campaign, an acknowledgement really that this tariff cloud isn't going to clear anytime soon. The Premier has previously warned that as many as 500,000 Ontarians could lose their jobs in the face of tariffs. The government's already pledged $1 billion to skills redevelopment, a potential way to retrain workers who may need to find new work in the face of tariffs. New today, though, is a 6-month tax deferral for some companies backdated to April 1st. And the Workplace Safety and Insurance Board is issuing $2 billion in rebates to employers. The finance minister was speaking with our sister station, News Talk 1010 this morning, explaining how these measures could help in the face of tariffs.
It's for corporations who pay provincially administered taxes like fuel taxes and employer health taxes, so they can basically get a interest-free loan for 6 months. And then WSIB is real cash, which allows them to hire more workers, protect workers. And of course, this is addition to measures working with the federal government. You know, the tariff revenues are going to be billions that are going to flow into Ontario companies.
The Premier has promised that his first bill, when the legislature reconvenes, will be aimed at breaking down internal trade barriers within Canada, something that could really help the economy. MPPs will be back here at Queen's Park for the first time since December, a week today. Reporting live from Queen's Park, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. Library workers have ratified a 4-year deal with the city. Members of CUPE Local 4948 strongly supported the deal in a weekend vote. The contract secures wage increases, better working conditions, and job security for roughly 2,300 full and part-time workers with the Toronto Public Library. The deal will now go to the city's library board for ratification.
A note for subway riders, there is an early nightly closure on Line 2 this week. Starting tonight, lasting through Friday, service between Jane and Ossington will end at 11 p.m. The early closure is to accommodate track work in the area. Shuttle buses will run in place of trains. There will also be limited late-night service until Thursday on a portion of Line 1. The TTC says customers can expect delays of up to 20 minutes starting at 11 p.m. between Vaughan Metropolitan Centre and Pioneer Village stations. That is due to planned tunnel maintenance. And there are several service changes for GO Transit riders to keep in mind starting today. Metrolink says 2 late evening trains on the Lakeshore West line are being replaced with GO buses through Thursday. That's to accommodate construction at Long Branch GO. Trips on the line will also depart up to 6 minutes earlier or later than usual. On the Stouffville line, some trips will depart up to 12 minutes earlier or later. Metrolink is also adding a new morning rush hour train on the Lakeshore East line and 6 new trains between Malton, Bramalea GO and Union Station.
We have more news in a moment, but first, here's a live look at the city this afternoon. Lots of sunshine to start the work week. A bit cool, so a light jacket, a good idea. And looks like we could get some rain and maybe even flurries this week. Jessica Smith is here with a look at the current conditions. Hey, Jess.
Hey, and you know what? That's just spring, right? Sunshine in the morning, a snowstorm in the afternoon, and then more sunshine later in the day. The good news for us, at least things are starting off nice and sunny and relatively mild with a southwesterly wind. The GTA faring not so bad to get our day going, but for our friends to the north, it's a bit of a different story through Goderich, Owen Sound, and Parry Sound. We've even got some snowfall warnings in place through parts of the province. More so up towards Parry Sound, those eastern shorelines of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay could see anywhere from 2 to 15 centimeters as we see this low pressure system building and pushing across the Great Lakes. The GTA not dealing with any of that really intense stuff, but we could see the kind of tail end of it, where it starts off as a bit of rain. We could see a little mixing as we see a battleground between a southwesterly wind becoming northwesterly a little bit later in the day. But for now, everything is all right. We're holding on at a relatively mild point around the Golden Horseshoe, and we will see a daytime high close-ish to seasonal as we head throughout the day today. Sunny right now through the islands, 5 degrees, the same through Pearson. As we head into that second half of our day, the winds pick up. We're looking at about 8 degrees, so comfortable, but it is still kind of that battleground between warm air and cold air. I'll break everything down as we get into your full forecast. Right now, it's back over to Michelle and Nathan.
Thanks, Jess.
Thanks.
Well, as we've touched on, there are just 3 weeks to go until Canadians head to the polls to choose the next prime minister.
Party leaders are spread out across the country today as they make their pitches to voters.
You should be entitled to a severance.
Yes.
And to not get any, you must be really frustrated.
It is. Yeah. The uncertainty is killing us.
The uncertainty, yeah.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is campaigning in Toronto today. This morning, he sat down with Unifor workers about the looming layoffs at Hudson's Bay. The company announced it will not be paying severance to more than 9,000 workers, most of whom will soon lose their job. And for the latest on the campaign trail, we're joined live by CTV's Colton Braille in Ottawa. Colton, where in the country are the leaders campaigning today and why?
A lot can be gained from looking at the polling to give you insights into this. The NDP right now, you mentioned they're in Toronto, they're polling at a 2-decade low, under 8% according to the latest Nanos data, and that's a number that's dropping, not climbing. We've seen them hitting up basically big cities all across the country, but in cities where they're likely to find a little bit of support. So, for example, Toronto today, Halifax over the weekend, we saw them in Edmonton and Winnipeg, areas where there are seats for the NDP specifically to try to save, because right now it's about keeping official party status, not necessarily forming the next government. And when you have that in mind, the challenge that the NDP is facing, it makes a lot more sense when you see the Liberals and Conservatives both out in BC. Now, Pierre Poilievre is in northern BC, but he was in the interior and southern portions of BC a little earlier. You have Mark Carney on Vancouver Island. He was in Victoria last night. That is a very orange-rich area of the country. All of a sudden, those seats are up for grabs. They're contestable, and so BC becomes a fighting ground between the Liberals and Conservatives, and the way they're going about it is very different. For example, with Pierre Poilievre in Tariffs, BC, he is just about a 40-minute drive from Kitimat, BC, where there is a new liquid natural gas plant. He's pushing to say that he'll expand that plant into phase 2. If you think about earlier this week, that plant started coming online. The first natural gas tanker arrived there. He's challenging his opponents to go further when it comes to energy, when it comes to making sure that there are ports on both sides of the country that can ensure Canadian products are getting overseas and diversifying our markets. At the same time, you've got the Liberals looking to try to capitalize on this NDP weakness. So you can see it's not just where they are, it's also what they're talking about that's really delineating these campaigns so far.
Are any other policy announcements expected today?
Yeah, the Bloc's focusing a lot on culture. This is going to be especially key for the Radio-Canada versus CBC debate. They're pitching a separation of those two. That's probably the most interesting element of the policy that they're talking about today for people outside of Quebec. Obviously, the NDP falling back on housing, that has been something they've been talking about a lot over the last several days. This is a key pillar, not just of their campaign, but of the party support as a whole, which does tend to skew younger. And so this is going to be a way that they try to shore up that support. At the same time, as the NDP and to a certain extent the Conservatives are skewing younger, the Liberals are skewing older, and so we're seeing affordability and pension security being something that they're talking about today. They'll have another announcement later as well, but already they've said that they're going to decrease the minimum amount required to be withdrawn from a retirement fund, while also at the same time increasing the amount of government support that's going to seniors. Now, both of those would just be one-year changes, but it's designed to help older Canadians on a fixed income weather whatever economic uncertainty comes as a result of Trump's tariffs, but also just the general affordability issues that exist inside of Canada. Poilievre, as I mentioned, making an announcement around oil and gas. This is very similar to what we've heard him talk about before. Essentially, a one-and-done policy is what he's calling it. This would be one regulatory approval and one environmental approval for new resource projects. He also says he wants to shorten the timeline on getting these projects approved to within 1 year. He's promising to really ramp up the speed at which Canada builds national infrastructure.
All right, CTV's Colton Prale in Ottawa with the very latest on the federal election campaign. Thank you.
Anytime.
Well, Canada's population is growing, particularly in Nova Scotia.
And with that growth comes a change in political ridings. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth has those details.
The rapid rate of Nova Scotia's population growth has pushed the province's electoral boundaries to change.
Every 10 years, there's this system set up. It's done by independent commissions.
Elections Canada spokesperson Diane Benson says independent commissions examined the population across the province.
And then they make the decisions for these new boundaries.
10 of Nova Scotia's 11 federal ridings look much different compared to last election. Halifax West shifted its borders to the south after growing by nearly 25,000 people in 10 years. Sydney Victoria was renamed Sydney Glace Bay. The other Cape Breton riding swallowed up the mainland town of Antigonish. After initial disagreement about who would run where, the two Cape Breton Liberal incumbent MPs are on the ballots separately in both ridings. Political science professor Alex Marland says changing the election map is not always a smooth process.
And you can have a lot of internal party dynamics at play. You can have a lot of arguing and fighting.
Nova Scotia's population boom has been partly brought on by the influx of immigrants. Marina Horowitz came to Canada 2 years ago, but can't vote until she becomes a Canadian citizen.
I'm sure that voting for future Prime Minister here, it'll be an important decision for us.
The process of redrawing the political map is a part of the Canadian Constitution and is designed to protect the one person, one vote principle.
You would end up with densely packed urban areas in particular, and you would have rural areas with much fewer people in it. And so you'd end up with a disproportionate amount of say for people in rural areas than urban areas.
Elections Canada is working to ensure voters are informed their riding boundaries have changed, so they know where to go on Election Day. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
And by the way, today is the last day for candidates to register for the federal election. Party nominees and independents will have until 2 p.m. Eastern Time to put their names forward. Voters will be able to see the complete list of candidates in their riding by Wednesday at the latest. Advanced voting begins on April 18th. Election Day is April 28th. U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs could actually boost tourism here in Canada.
RV dealerships and campsites have seen an increase in sales and bookings as Canadians choose to stay closer to home. CTV's Kathy Lee has the story.
Escaping the bustle of the city to the tranquility of nature is their ideal getaway.
We like to hike and climb and then just relax by the fire.
Their summer travel plans involve a lot of relaxing, and they'll do it north of the border.
A dollar doesn't go very far down there.
The weak dollar and the trade war, just some reasons why many travelers are choosing Canada instead of the United States as their destination.
We're hearing from operators across the country, really, that domestic bookings are up for this summer.
Including this RV resort in BC. The company's seeing a 48% increase in reservations this month compared to the same time last year.
It's the dollar first, and then it's the political climate. People aren't, feeling comfortable being in the States right now until things get figured out.
And this RV campsite in Alberta expecting to see a bump in bookings too.
We always have lots of space. And, even with our dollar being so weak, hey, we'll welcome any Americans that want to come too.
The shifting travel trend could help RV retail stores as long as their U.S.-made products remain exempt from tariffs thanks to the Canada-U.S.-Mexico Free Trade Agreement.
Pricings remain stable, and we continue to steadily order inventory to service this burst in demand.
Some of that demand also coming from Canadians who will still travel down south.
People still need to make a living down there. People who run the RV sites, they're still very accommodating to us, and they want us to come down there regardless of what's going on with the government.
The Tourism Industry Association of Canada says the country saw $130 billion in visitor spending last year, boosting the GDP by $50 billion. This year is expected to be strong again, with more Canadians staying local. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Mosley, Alberta.
Well, we have a fairly sunny and seasonal start to the work and school week, but things are set to change as we head into the afternoon and early evening, so keep that in mind. It could impact your drive home today. Temperature-wise, we should be around 10 degrees for this time of year. We will get there sort of as we head into the afternoon, right around 8, but it is going to be windy. Those winds change direction into this evening, and it gets cool, and it brings in some messy weather. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast.
There were big laughs in the beaches last night at a comedy show in support of a local nonprofit community hub. The Beaches Sandbox hosted a Comedy for Community event showcasing local talent, as well as Juno-nominated comedian Courtney Gilmore, who gained popularity competing in Canada's Got Talent.
Tonight is our very first comedy night, and it's our pleasure to bring a new performing arts space to the community where we're highlighting underrepresented voices and really just trying to bring the community together and have some fun.
I'm excited that this is an organization that has so many amazing accessible programs for people, and I think it's really cool. Sunday night, we're getting people out. People are coming here, they could be at home watching White Lotus, but they're here watching comedy, and that's incredible. Supporting local charities, registered charities who are doing amazing things, summer camps, fitness, cooking. It's awesome. Very cool to be part of it.
Funds raised from the event went toward the Beaches Sandbox, a registered charity that offers programs, workshops, and camps for all ages and all abilities.
That looks like fun. I remember once I went to a comedy club, I sat front row.
No,
I got
never sit front
roasted
row.
by pretty much every comic there,
It's
but it
the
was
best.
fun. Anyway.
You're brave. I love that.
It wasn't intentional. I got there late. Anyway, nothing funny about the weather.
Late and the front row, man. I've sat in the front row as well at a comedy show, and it's taking a risk. Also, maybe taking a risk with the weather today, because it's just that sweet spot where it's a little bit cool out there, where you want to wear the jacket when you're in the shade, but in the sun, you're regretting your choices. So it's a really weird place to be in. But we are holding on at a fairly seasonal point until we get in towards this evening. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm. Injury lawyers, you don't pay unless they win. Now, temperature-wise, it's not the worst out there. A little cool this morning, but if you had a jacket on, it's all right. And I'll take a sunny start to the day any day. It will get a little windy, though, as we step into the afternoon, so you may need that layer or two whether you're standing in the sun or not. A nice wide shot here, really through the GTA. It's not bad, but we're watching this system right here make its way in as we head throughout the day today. That's prompting a number of weather alerts and some warnings as we kind of kick off a brand new week. For our friends up through Parry Sound and through portions of northern Ontario, they're looking at a snowfall warning, maybe 15 to 25 centimeters for them. The range varies quite a bit, a little bit further south. Anywhere kind of along those eastern shorelines, Lake Huron and Georgian Bay, it ranges between 5 to 15. Waterloo region, maybe about 2. For the GTA, by the time it makes its way towards us, we're still holding on to relatively mild air. We're looking at it likely falling as some mixing, but more so of a wet snow, if anything. I'm seeing more of a rain for us here in the downtown core. But temperature-wise, we're holding on. 5 degrees right now, a kind of more southerly wind. Anywhere north of Sudbury, though, they're battling with that colder air. And in that intersection is where that mixing is going to take place as we head throughout the day today. 8 degrees is where we will sit this afternoon. We should be at 10, so everybody holding on at a fairly seasonal point. We head into this evening, though, and it is cold. -4 feeling like -11, and everybody dealing with a bit of a wicked wind chill as winds become northwesterly overnight. There's that low that pushes through, the bulk of it staying north of us, but we could see just, again, a few little kind of trickle down like rain showers for us here in the GTA, maybe a little mixing as those winds change overnight. As we head in towards this afternoon, that's when we're watching for the rain here in the GTA. Again, snow along those eastern shorelines of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. Maybe another burst of showers as we head into the late afternoon, early evening, and then we get a bit of a break overnight. Still some light flurries, though, along those eastern shorelines of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. Overnight, maybe a very light flurry, but as we get into the day tomorrow, just a lot of cloud cover out there and some sunshine into the afternoon. So this kind of ricochet whiplash with our forecast, it continues as we head throughout the week ahead. Temperature-wise, again, fairly close to seasonal for our daytime high, but well below this evening. We dip down. It gets really cold into the day tomorrow for this time of year, but sunshine into the afternoon. We warm back up on Wednesday. We cool back down on Thursday, and that comes with a chance of a little bit of mixing out there. So just be prepared and dress for almost everything this time of year. But looking ahead to the weekend, a whole lot of sunshine and some warmth finally returns. Nathan, I'll send it back to you.
All right, something to look forward to. Thank you, Jess.
Thanks.
Alex Ovechkin made hockey history once again over the weekend.
Force it to him if he's open. Here is Ovechkin. Shoots. He scores! He scores! Number 895!
Ovechkin passed Wayne Gretzky atop the NHL's all-time goals list with a goal in the second period of his Washington Capitals game against the New York Islanders yesterday afternoon. Gretzky was in attendance as the Russian star was mobbed by his teammates. The game was stopped for a ceremony where both Ovechkin and Gretzky delivered remarks.
I can tell you firsthand, I know how hard it is to get to 894. 895 is pretty special. My congratulations to not only Alex, his mom and dad, his family, his wife and kids. When I broke the record, my 2 kids were about the age of his boys. So it's kind of reminiscent for me, and I'm so happy that 2 of my boys are here tonight. But there's nothing better than the National Hockey League. They say records are made to be broken, but I'm not sure who's going to get more goals than that.
Like I always say all the time, it's a team sport, and without my boys, the whole organization, the fans, the trainers, coaches, I would never stand there, and obviously I would never pass a great one. So, fellas, thank you very much. I love you so much.
As part of the ceremony, Ovechkin posed for a photo alongside his family, Gretzky, and the rest of the Washington Capitals. Ovechkin's goal was the only one of the game for the Capitals, who ended up losing 4-1.
Still to come on CTV News at noon, do women really hear better than men? A new study is shedding light on the question. You'll want to hear the answer when we return.
A new study confirms something married couples have known for centuries, that women really do hear better than men.
What's that, Nathan? Oh, we're joined now by CTV science and tech specialist Dan Riskin. Dan, tell us everything about this study.
You stole my joke. I was ready to say, what? Could you repeat the question? But you're all over it. You guys are too quick. This is a study. I mean, it's this thing that everybody says, but it'd be nice to know if it was actually true. So they went around, 450 people from like all corners of the earth, Uzbekistan, Gabon, England, a whole bunch of different countries, from the top of the Andes to rainforests to big cities, and everywhere they measured, Men don't hear as well as women. And this isn't like, what did I just tell you? This isn't, are you listening? It's not even, can you hear this noise? It's actually a device that's held up to the ear that sends vibrations in and measures the vibrations back. So it's a physiological recording of what the thresholds are for being able to hear a noise. And around the world, men just do not hear as well as women, which is really interesting because it sort of mimics the joke that everybody's been making, all along.
That was justified.
Yeah, this is your excuse.
Oh, don't
what about
use
the study?
that as an excuse.
What was that? I didn't hear anything you just said.
Exactly, it's not my fault. I'm just a man.
This is opening a can of worms.
Oh, a huge can of worms. Yeah, earworms, in fact.
All right, another study looks at screen time and sleep. We all know that it's best to stay off the phones before going to bed. It can impact sleep, but now we've got some numbers to support this.
Yeah, so some pretty striking numbers. If you're somebody that likes to look at your phone before you go to bed, you might think twice about it. And listen, I'm on that list, and I have changed my habits since I saw this study. Because if you're on your phone for an hour before bed, on average, you reduce the number of minutes that you sleep by 24. So 24 minutes less sleep. It's about half an hour less sleep that night. Do that every night for the week, and you're losing hours of sleep every week. And it's not the time you're spending on your phone. It's the fact that you don't sleep as well afterwards. And the likelihood that you'll have insomnia, if you're looking at your phone for an hour, goes up 63% compared to if you're not looking at a phone. So I believed that because I was doing crosswords on my phone and I was avoiding social media and work emails, that it wasn't a big deal. But this big study from Norway where they looked at tens of thousands of people in their 20s using their devices and what their habits are, it doesn't matter what you're doing on your phone. Even if it's a crossword, even if you're staying off of your work stuff and try not to be stressed, even if you're watching a TV show on your device, it's the screen that's causing the problem. So you really need to move to paper and pencil, do crosswords, read a book. That's just going to be much better for your sleep.
Any screen, like the TV screen included?
This was just looking at phones. So it didn't compare if you're looking at a TV or an e-reader that uses e-ink, things like that. This is just using your phone.
Finally, let's talk about bodyoids. These are lab-grown bodies without brains. I mean, this sounds straight up science fiction, but scientists are talking about this. Why is that?
Yeah, so this doesn't exist yet, but scientists want to get the conversation started because this is a technology that could come down the pipeline where you could grow a Michel Dubé in the lab, and then if Michel Dubé, heaven forbid, needs an organ transplant, well, you can go get one of your own. You don't need to take anti-suppressant drugs to get somebody else's kidney put into your body. You can just have one from the spare body that you've grown. The idea is to grow them without nerve cells, so they don't have a brain, they don't experience pain, they don't have consciousness, they don't have, experience. But it's a creepy idea. What happens when you're done with that bodyoid? Do you throw it in a landfill, or does it have to be buried? Is it a person? These are creepy questions, and scientists are saying, let's have these conversations now because the technology is on its way. It would be a game changer for organ transplants, but it does open another can of worms.
Ethics. Yeah, I could see many university courses on this.
Yeah, absolutely. And does it have a soul? Is it a human being if it's just a bunch of organs? So where is the soul in a body? If it doesn't have a brain, theoretically, if they can grow them that way, does it still have a soul?
Oh, great question. All right, CTV's science and tech specialist, Dan Riskin, always something for us to think about. Have a good one. Thank you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
Well, some other news now. 2 NASA astronauts who were stranded for months aboard the International Space Station are speaking out about their situation.
They've since returned to Earth, and they're sharing some of the lessons they've learned from all that time in orbit. CTV's Allison Bamford reports.
I would say it was difficult. We never said we were going to be gone for 9 months, but it turned out that way.
NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams speaking about their journey for the first time since returning home.
I'm back.
And splashdown, Crew 9 back on Earth.
What was supposed to be an 8-day mission lasted more than 9 months.
And liftoff of Starliner and Atlas V.
Last June, the pair soared into space in the new Boeing Starliner, a mission meant to test the spacecraft for future flights.
When we go to the moon, we won't have an International Space Station to maybe take a stop at. We really have to get it right. And because of our mission, I think that highlighted some areas where maybe we need to work on and get it right.
Helium leaks and propulsion issues with the spacecraft extended the astronauts' stay at the International Space Station.
They were more than just gap fillers on the station. They were productive, pushing the station mission forward.
Now, back on Earth, they aren't pointing blame for the problems that kept them in space.
We're going to look forward and say, what are we going to use our lessons learned from this whole process and make sure that we are successful in the future.
The goal is to explore more of the solar system, but right now that success largely depends on missions taking place here.
We are in the golden age of the space station right now in terms of the return on investment and what we're able to do there.
Capabilities astronauts want to keep improving in the next age and beyond. Allison Bamford, CTV News.
Jay North, who played Dennis the Menace on the popular TV series, has died.
All right, Dennis, what have you done now and who to?
And how much is it going to cost?
North played the mischievous troublemaker in the adaptation of the popular comic strip for 4 seasons, starting in 1959. He died Sunday at his home in Florida after battling colon cancer. He was 73.
Still to come, rumors are swirling about a possible collaboration between Justin Bieber and Drake. We'll have those details and more when we come back.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Well, it's Monday, which means it's time for our weekly segment, Chronically Online.
And today we're joined live in studio by Sam East, host of 99.9 Virgin Radio. Sam, Toronto fans, they're just buzzing about Vladdy getting this extension. There was a huge question in the city. We heard some reaction from fans earlier, and it's a big number. What are you hearing online?
Well, he's a J for life. 2015 to 2039, he can't get out of this contract. He is locked in. He's going from 26 years old until 40 years old with this contract. So this is a big deal, and understandably so. Toronto fans are very, very happy with this news.
Are they surprised? It's a lot of money, half a billion dollars. And there was this rumor that maybe he would just go elsewhere and make even more money.
Yeah, there's been a lot of back and forth. I think it's been playing with a lot of fans' emotions. So to have this day, people are overjoyed, and obviously the online reaction has been massive. People have been petitioning for this, posting every single day in hopes that this result would be the end game.
Has Vladdy said thank you? Anything from Vladdy?
We're
I'm sure
waiting
at some
word
point
now
he's
at
gonna
this
say
point.
something.
Yeah, but all around, it's just a good way to start the week, right? Like, spring is here. This is good news as we go into the season, and we got him. We got him until he's 40 years old, which is wild.
Right, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, they definitely. What are some of the folks saying online? We have some of the tweets we could bring up.
Yeah, some of the tweets here that we're seeing, you know, this is a seismic moment for the Blue Jays organization. The Vladimir Guerrero Jr. extension resets the clock and positions them to continue their aggressive spending long term. It is over. Vladdy is staying in Toronto for good, period.
I love that. Seismic. Yes. And what's this one?
Well, this person has been petitioning for a long time, over 100 days straight of petitioning and posting for this extension to come. So I feel like they're taking some credit here for this endgame decision.
You know, it's a collective sigh of relief. We can relax and just watch the game.
Yeah.
And you know what? You also think he loves Toronto. And he likes us. You know, fans love him, and this is where he decided. So it's a real, it's real good.
Maybe
Win-win.
the best point. No more talk of players not wanting to stay here.
Yes.
That's done.
It's good
Especially,
for Toronto culture, I think, overall, to have that fixture in sport.
Right. Another one good for culture is 2 of the biggest stars in pop, Drake and Bieber. I'm surprised that they haven't collaborated.
They've had light collaborations before, but in terms of features, this is something that, you know, as Toronto fans, Canadian music fans, this is what we've wanted to see. So there is no official announcement at this point, but Justin Bieber's been in the studio working on new music, trying to cultivate a new sound for himself, and he put out a very cryptic post just saying, DM me if you want to collab, to which Drake responded, I did DM you and you didn't respond. So he was left on red. Drake was left on red.
When did he DM him originally?
So we don't have the timestamps on that, but Justin Bieber posted this open invite for collaboration just yesterday. Drake was quick to respond, and now everyone's kind of in the comments going back and forth. When are we going to get this collaboration? When is this going to get turned out? I mean, considering the publicity that Drake has gotten with the whole Kendrick beef situation, I think this could bring us together. There'd be some solidarity there on the Canadian music front.
And exactly, the time is perfect for something like this because, you know, Canada, some could argue, is under threat, and these are 2 huge Canadians among the biggest. And I think a lot of Americans see them as being American, but no, they're Canadian. It's just super Canadiana if they get together.
Yes, and I really hope that they pay homage to Toronto culture, Canadian culture. Drake is really good at that. Say what you will about Drake, but he always makes those references to Toronto culture. So I hope if they do get together in studio, they keep that Made in Canada vibe going.
Like a Tariff diss track.
Oh, I love that. Wait, Nathan, ghostwriter over here. I like that.
All right. Thanks so much, Sam. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
And, of course, you can hear Sam on 99.9 Virgin Radio weekdays from 2 to 5 p.m. Well, we're moving on to our next story here. The Hudson's Bay, forgive me. An important deadline is approaching for the Hudson's Bay Company. The department store's parent company, subsidiaries, and lenders have until the end of today to declare whether they're interested in bidding on any of the Bay's assets or leases. It's not clear what will be on offer, but everything from the Bay's Stripes brand to its art collection could be available for purchase. Hudson's Bay and its affiliates are required to express their intention to make bids before other potentially interested parties.
The World Trade Organization says Canada has requested dispute consultations over U.S. tariffs being imposed on a key sector. Canadian officials insist duties on automobiles and parts are inconsistent with American obligations under GATT, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. Dispute consultations in the WTO give the parties an opportunity to discuss the matter and find a solution without proceeding to litigation. If the dispute is not resolved after 60 days, the complainant can request adjudication by a panel. The WTO says Canada's request was circulated to its members today.
Meanwhile, the central bank says an increased number of Canadians think there's a higher chance of recession in the next year. About 32% of companies surveyed by the Bank of Canada for a quarterly analysis of business conditions expect a recession over the next 12 months. A similar survey of Canadian consumers showed 66.5% of them also seeing a recession ahead. The surveys were conducted in February before last Wednesday's announcement by U.S. President Donald Trump of tariffs on almost all American trading partners. The central bank also says around 40% of Canadian firms expect lower sales growth if tariffs are implemented. Canadian manufacturing exporters have cut their sales expectations for 2025.
Coming up on CTV News, students in Pickering are getting ready for a trip to South Africa. We'll have more on the group preparing to compete in a Lego robotics competition. Stay with us. A Pickering-based robotics team is getting ready for a big trip to South Africa.
They've created a robot out of Lego, which will be competing in the first Lego League Open Africa Championship. CTV's Carol Charles has the story.
The members of Team 705 CN Pickering have been hard at work preparing for competition. The group of young tech enthusiasts love STEM and robotics.
It's just really fun when I could be creative and draw my own characters and then put them into my own little world.
10-year-old Divija Jivahan is the youngest member heading to South Africa in May. They are making the trip to compete in the first Lego League Open Africa Championship.
I'm very excited. We're one of 2 teams in North America to go to this competition.
The requirement? Build a robot made of Lego, which has to complete various missions. Sajan Sivasankaran says they are ready for the challenge.
We have a very unique robot design. So for our competitions, our robot had a moving wall at the front of the robot, which many teams don't do. And our robot also groups many missions into one run, so we could minimize time lost during the robot runs.
There are 15 missions on the board, and teams are required to complete them in 2.5 minutes. Divija is confident her team can pull it off.
Our robot is short and it's boxed, so that means we could put on more types of attachments and we could do a bit more missions with those attachments.
Only the top 80 teams worldwide will compete.
I'm hoping that they will take away just life experiences, not just coding. They're learning about teamwork, inclusion, problem solving, resilience, most of it.
And cheering them on is Pickering Mayor Kevin Ash.
Here we have young people creating things, learning about the technologies of today that will be the jobs of tomorrow. So it's really important that they're excelling in it at a young age, and that science doesn't scare them off, especially the young ladies, you know, embracing the sciences that sometimes they're been underrepresented. So it's a great step forward for them.
The team has started a GoFundMe page with a goal of raising $18,000 to help the kids make the trip. Carol Charles, CTV News.
Wow, Lego, it's amazing what you can do.
It's so cool.
Weather-wise, we have to note, this is a week to really pay attention because there's a lot going on.
You're building a Lego sun, you're building Lego rain, and all these different things. This is the beauty and kind of that battleground with spring, right? You have to dress for winter, spring, summer, and fall, sometimes all in the same day. And that really is what's happening today as well. We got lots of sunshine, and it's warm right now, but you can see that impending low-pressure system. Not so much a snow event for us, but we are watching it impacting those communities along those eastern shorelines of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. As the winds become northwesterly for everybody, that's where the shift takes place for us. We're looking at a few spots of rain this afternoon, but nothing all that serious. Overnight, the winds change, and we might see a few very light flurries. Still looking at those snowfall warnings up towards Parry Sound. Temperature-wise, though, in the 6, it's not so bad. We're sitting at 5 degrees here in the city, 8 through Niagara, 6 in Ottawa, and 7 through Windsor. We are hovering around the seasonal mark for our daytime high today. Those winds change, and it gets a little fresh out there. We drop down to -4. We get into our Tuesday morning, maybe a few light flakes. You won't have to shovel, I promise, but it is going to be cool. So you'll need the winter jacket tomorrow, and then you can ditch it by the time we get into Wednesday. Maybe bring it back out for Thursday with the rain gear, get rid of it for Friday, and by Saturday, it's like it all never happens.
Good advice. Thank you, Jess. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jess Smith and the whole team here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Shelby Day.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great day.